Let's go, Brenda. I'm happy to have you. And I'm more than thankful that you took the time and the effort to get here. We had a little chat up front, and now I'm all ears to your intro, and then let's dive directly into your story.
Yeah, Ilya, thanks very much for having me. I speak a little German. Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch.
That was
Yeah,
great.
my name my name is Brenda, and I'm the founder of HOMY Robotics. We're building humanoid robots for senior living, and we're here in San Francisco, so calling in from the Valley. Yeah, I can just go right into my story. I was born and raised in Kenya, and I moved to the US for college at I think 18 years old. So um, it's been a while, but going back to my very early story, I went to boarding school when I was really young, and I was a very very good student, very studious. Like I used to like wake up at like 4 a.m. or 4:30 to like go to class, and like everybody else was like kind of sleeping. And we used to have like it was a British boarding school, so we used to like have something called the matron. That's someone who like oversees and like makes sure that we're in bed by time. And like I'd go to bed like super late. I'd be like studying under the bathroom lights. So she would like turn off the lights, and like I would sneak in and like go to the bathroom, and like I would be studying. And then I'm going to bed at like midnight, and like by 4:30 I'm like already awake. So I just don't know. I think I loved studying. It was like really my happy place. But at the same time I was like such a dreamer, and like I was always like wandering off and like thinking about, I don't know, the future or like the world, like philosophical questions about life. So did really well, and then I applied to schools in the US. I think like I wanted to explore the world, so I kind of ended up like applying to my dream school was Harvard. I didn't get in at that time, but I did get into Cornell, and I kind of like grew up watching like a lot of sci-fi. Like I was such a huge fan of Iron Man. I think if anything, he's like been one of my biggest like inspirations. Like I was very obsessed with Jarvis. I love like Star Wars R2D2. So just like kind of dreaming and like thinking about what the future is like, and like, you know, anyway, so I applied to colleges from Kenya, and then I got into Cornell, and like I was just like very tiny. I was very, very tiny actually. So like my parents are like so scared to like let me go, and like I moved there with one suitcase, and then I got there, and I was, I was always also very interested in like how the brain works. So I applied to like several research labs, and I got into one which was doing Alzheimer's. So I started doing like Alzheimer's research and kind of like really understanding like the process of like neurodegeneration, and like just how like the neurocircuits works and stuff. And it was my transitions like from healthcare to medical school and then to technology. Like now thinking back on it and reflecting, I realized that I always really loved technology. And in my culture, we didn't at that time really have like tech role models like tech founders and stuff like that. But I realized like my uncle is actually one of the early founders of like Google Maps for Africa. And like I think at one point like Google wanted to acquire him. I wasn't like super close with him, but thinking back on it, like I had that kind of subconsciously kind of. But my family is like really full of doctors, so I was supposed to be a doctor. Like that's the culture. So when I got to Cornell, I was like doing neuroscience and like pre-med, so I'm a neuroscientist by training. So the kind of the inflection point where I got into tech, so I graduated, and then like COVID happens. So this is like 2020. Like by that time my family like has moved from Kenya to like Seattle, and Seattle is like such a tech city. So I got to like just see how much technology was going. Like we have Microsoft and Amazon, and like people like Satya who also like really had a big influence on me actually. Like I got to work on him. I got to work with him briefly, and I think that was actually my turning point, because I realized I was always like inspired by tech, but I just like I never took the I was never bold enough to like say I don't want to go to medical school. Like I want to do tech. But just like that brief encounter with Sadia where I worked with him, I think it changed everything for me. And I was like, wait, I could actually, do tech. So by that time I had started, I co-founded, not co-founded really, but I started working on tech projects. So one of the things we were working with was like a sub vocalization device. So like if you put it on like on here, like the movements, we were trying to translate them because I had witnessed people who had special needs and could not really communicate verbally. So we were trying to kind of see if the movements could be translated into like kind of speech. So I worked on that for a while. And then, so by this time, COVID is happening. And like when my family moved to the US, they got into senior living and retirement services. So I also got to work with seniors at that time. And I can tell you this much later, but that was actually the beginning of me being really interested in like the problems in senior living. But, the path was medical school. So Harvard was always my dream school. And so I reached out to the administration and I said, hey, I really want to go to medical school, but I wanted to kind of do a program to like continue preparing for that, like more hardcore science classes and like more clinical work. And then they said, are you a US resident? Yes. And I said, no, but I was like on a student visa and I'm transferring to like a permanent residency through my family when we moved here. And they said at that time you actually could not enroll in like a pre-med program without being a US resident. So it wasn't an option, but I kind of found like a back door because they told me, actually if you enroll in the program, you can like still do everything else people do. So like it's kind of like when I hear some of my friends saying they kind of took so many college credits without even being a student of a certain like institution. So uh, with that, I didn't even need to like go through like the formal acceptance registration or whatever. I just like registered for like the classes I wanted to take at Harvard, and like that's how I started. So I moved from Seattle again, and then I moved to Boston. So the path was medical school, and at that time I had slowly started going less and less to class and like less more inclined to going to like pursuing the medical school because I was like working on little projects on the side. And one of the things my friend and I did was like an AI assistant for doctors actually, because I realized like when you go to hospital, like the doctor is like writing notes. I was like, it doesn't seem okay because we have so much technologies right now that shouldn't be even a thing. It's like so outdated. So we kind of started being like we built a little AI assistant to like kind of help doctors like focus on the patient and build the connection. And like by that actually the patient opens up more and they see the doctor is like really paying attention. So we did that. Anyway, that's like I was like so doubling in medical school classes and then like also like working on my tech projects by the side. And then after a while I said, I really love tech and like I think I'm ready to kind of have the talk with my parents and say, hey mom, hey dad, like I really want to move to Silicon Valley. I think like at Harvard and MIT we have like really, really good communities, but to be honest, and like nothing, no hard feelings and like nothing bad against the Harvard MIT community, but honestly like nothing compares to Silicon Valley really. So with that I kind of like packed my little bag and like I moved to the valley. Like I knew like I had a few really close friends.
No, no, wait.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you go me a little bit too fast here.
Yeah.
There's a few things I like to understand a bit better. And it's accelerating. I always like people that have this urge of getting things done and doing
Yeah.
things and have dynamic and energy. So your energy is infectious. I'm enjoying it. It makes me speechless a bit, but because I'm curious, I would like to go a few steps back and ask a few questions on things that happened already in the story,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. One of the things is for me. I mean, nowadays it's much more normal, but for one personally, it's always a very big step to go from one culture to a different culture.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort, it takes money, it takes a lot of stress when it comes to all the administrational work, but it also takes a lot of guts. You do need to want this, or you get sent it by your parents. But it seems like you said you wanted to go to the US, and You said you're coming from a family of doctors, so traveling or going from one place to another place might not be so far from the world you're coming off, but still, it's a huge step, especially if you're young. How was that for you, especially as a woman? It is hard to go somewhere else. And you said you were tiny, just with a huge with a suitcase. How was it for you to actually not only making the decision, but like I said, to go all through the administration and stuff and talking with parents and friends and siblings? So how was that for you? How did you make it through and found the braveness to actually do it?
Thank you, Ilya. That's a really good question, and that it's really hard, and it's really hard, like for a lot of people, especially when you wanna, it's not. I think it's the American dream, but it's also just like wanting something more than what you're born into. So, in my, I was born into like a really amazing family, wonderful family. My parents are like super brilliant and like actually, I just don't know. Like, I remember, like, when I was in boarding school and like I was studying as much as I was studying, like when I went home for break, my parents would like literally like drop me off at the library and pick me up in the evening. And that was like the happiest moment for me. So I think like I just like always had this thing in me, whether it's like academic excellence but also just curiosity. Like I think I just wanted to explore the world and like I wanted more. And like growing up, I think one of my earliest influences was Ben Carson, and like my mom gifted me gifted hands by Ben Carson, and like he was a surgeon. So actually I was very very young when I read Gifted Hands by Ben Carson. So like I knew like I wanted to go into neurology and like neurosurgery when I was like very little. So from then on, like that was the path, and I looked like who are the best like surgeons in the world. Where did Carson go to school? Like he went to school in Hopkins. So like I actually applied to Hopkins. I think I don't know, like Hopkins was also like really competitive, but anyway, you can never really know like why you don't get into a certain college. But I knew I wanted more. And like I remember when I was younger, like I was always like a leader in some way. I don't know where it came from. I think you could be born with it, but it's also something that you learn. Because like I was always class president, even though like I say no, like I don't want to do it. Like people would say like we want you to be class president. So like I knew like I was a good leader. And then like one of like the school president kind of called me aside, and like she was telling me, um, you know, what do you aspire for? Or do you just like want to stay in Kenya, or like do you want to go abroad? So there's all these people like who are seeing that there's so much more that I could do. Like from I had teachers who like really, I was kind of like a teacher's pet, just like because I was doing really well in school, and also because like I had this like ability to like cut through noise. Like the world could be burning like around me, like I was just like super like I was in this like trance like state. In like when I get into workflow, it's just like very hard to like distract me or like get me out of it. So I think my teachers really loved that ability about me, that I was just like super locked in, like super like yeah. So like I had people like along the way kind of just like encourage me and say like want more for me. I wanted more for myself, but they also like saw something in me and like they wanted more for me. So I think just like my teachers in school and like my parents at home and like also my family really like they just, and like I also come from like a really big family, actually like super super big family, and I'm very grateful for that. Because like I grew up surrounded by like a lot of love and like friends, and like we had like these just like very playful like sibling friendships in the family. And some of like my family members like really excelled, and like one of them like the one that's why I speak German actually, because I ended up like taking German for 6 years because I was gonna go to medical school in Germany. And so my cousin went took that path, so I was gonna follow her. But I think at some point I realized, oh my god, like I don't know, like US seemed like such an easy path. But also like in addition to that, like schools like ours and a few others, they had this process like where they take students through like the application process to the US. And my school didn't have that as much, but some of my friends were in school where they were like really encouraged, like they helped with SAT prep and like all these things. And like I didn't have that, but I was able to tap into those I think I was just like a very resourceful person. Like I was just like found opportunities around me. And And then I applied to this like they used to be like organizations in my home country that could help you like apply to like colleges in the US. So like I joined some of those. I can't really tell why the US particularly. I think it's just like I wanted from like right now. Like if you look at my T-shirt, it says Occupy Mars. Like now that I'm here, I think I also want like for humanity, for us to be curious and like go to like space and like go to the moon and go to Mars, and then from Mars then we go to deep space. So I think for me it's always been a journey of like expanding my mind and like my curiosity and like just like seeing what else is out there. And I had that from very young. So I just like, even like the big step of going to boarding school, that was really hard because like I got extremely homesick. And like but I went to like the best boarding school, and like I think for me it was just like academic excellence, and I really excelled at my studies. And so like it was like a series of me leaving home to boarding school, then like moving to the US. And like the culture was also super different. Like when I got to the US to Cornell, like I just like I didn't know a lot of people. And but I ended up like finding my community of nerds, like researchers. Like our lab is in the basement, but along the way it was moved to like the fifth floor or something, but we're like just like in the basement, like doing research and like being nerds. So like I ended up finding my people, but I just like I didn't know anybody when I moved to, I tried to form friendships before I got there. So like I had a little money. I think like my parents gave me like $1,000 or something, and like I had one suitcase. I can't tell where the tenacity comes from, but I think for me it's just like curiosity and just like just yeah.
And is that something that you where I mean there's this is just an assumption, right? Is there, I mean, for me, it seems like there's a lot of pressure because if you're coming from a family that is so big and everyone is excelling, as you said, there's a lot of scientists or doctors. You go into a boarding school, I don't think that one is cheap. So, and then if you, as you said, being a teacher's pet and people saw something in you and projected things on their own to you or on you, and also you being a very good student is is uh, is that something that you felt was being put on you, or is that something that because I think, yeah, or is that something that that came from within you? Because I do think that there is some portion of us we can't change, no matter what. This is just us. But then there's a very big part, I do believe very big in this, and I don't think it can ever be overrated. That is where we grew up and how we compare ourselves to other people, right? When there's some saying about you are the average of the people that you're surrounded with, or the best thing that you can do in life is the surroundings or your people you're surrounded with, right? They either can level you up or not. So, but coming back to my basic question, was there, did you ever felt like this being a big pressure on you?
Yeah, thanks for that question. That's a good question. I think part of me, like, just like sometimes there's something they call German machine, and like I think like part of me like really operates like a machine. Not like I'm still like very deeply human, and like I have like big emotions and feelings sometimes. But as I was mentioning, like even like when I went to boarding school, is a part of me that's like just like able to like cut through. Like it's like I remember even like when I was at Cornell, and like I graduated, and like during the holidays, or like when like people go home like the summer or whatever, they sometimes lock the dorms, and like I'd find myself without even like somewhere to stay, because like it wasn't even in like my radar that I needed to like plan for like holidays and like find a home, just like because I was like so obsessed with like what I was doing, whether it was like my studies or like it was like in lab like doing like neuroscience research. So I found that I just like became obsessed, and everything else kind of like disappeared. So like I think like for me, I have like that natural ability to like be really, really obsessed with something that I deeply care about. So that was kind of what was going for me. Like even when I was studying, like even when I was getting A's and like being a good student, it's not like um it was hard or something. Like it was just like my happy place. Like that was like just like me like understanding like how the brain works, or like reading about Ben Carson, or like about space, or like whatever it is. Like I just like get lost in it, and like that really translated to like grades, like it translates to excellence. People were like, oh my god, like she's getting A's all the time. But then like really like for me, I didn't look at the grades much. It was more like just like an obsession I had, and I can't explain it, and then that translates to me doing really well. But you're so right, like beyond that point, like some of it then starts becoming like social pressure, like because sometimes like I was like always the top of my class, and then sometimes and like we're always competing with like a few other students who are like also like super smart. So I'd find like some, I remember one girl called Maureen or something, and like sometimes she'd like be on top of the class and I'd be second or third, and like I would just like totally freak out. And I think like sometimes I'd like I was having a bad time, and like I was still in the top 10. Like I think one time I was like position 7 or something, like just that. I think it just like totally freaked me out. So I was like obsessed on like doing what I'm doing, and then that would translate to good grades. But then I think at some point it became like I'm supposed to like be top of my class, and then when that didn't happen, I was like, oh my god, like what are they thinking about me? So it became really social pressure. And I think there's this psychology thing where they talk like about the firstborn daughter, like the eldest daughter, like even the firstborns are like the ones who like I come from a big family, but my nuclear family, we have 4 kids, and but I'm the firstborn, so like there was this real pressure to like set a good example for all my siblings, and like all the rest of my siblings are super brilliant. Like my brother's like doing aeronautical engineering, like aviation, so he was like also really obsessed with flying, and like the other two are like really young, and like at least right now there isn't pressure like go to college or like do this. I think our education system is like really outdated, so like we're just like trying to see what my younger siblings want to do and kind of instill curiosity in them, and then they can kind of pick, like they don't even have to go to college if they don't want to, but they have to be curious and love something, and kind of be inspired by that, be inspired by their own things that they love. But yeah, in my time, like being the firstborn daughter, like the eldest child, like that was just like it became this huge amount of pressure. And when my parents like moved to the US, my dad wanted to like get a PhD and be a professor, but I think at some time like you have to like put that aside if like you have a family to take care of. So I could feel the dreams of my parents like coming onto me, and like I had this huge pressure to like fulfill their dreams for them through them. And actually that like really inspires me. And like I'm very my mom is like, my dad was like very like hardcore like me, and my mom is like really soft and like really flowy, but like very very loving. So I got some qualities from my dad where I'm able to like be a machine and like be super hardcore, and like also that empathy that my mom has. So I think that I found that all these dreams of my parents that they somehow didn't accomplish because they were trying to like my, even me going to all these amazing schools, like my parents did everything for me to like be where I am, like everything. So like I'm so grateful, and like I don't want to let them down. But on one thing, like it really inspires you. So like right now, like I've really grown as like a person, as a human, like as a founder. So I no longer see it as pressure. Like I see it as gratitude. Like they did so much for me. So like kind of my mind shift has shifted. Like right now as a founder, actually, I don't know if I feel any pressure because I'm kind of back to that state of like obsession. Like I'm just like happy, and I can't believe like people are paying me to, well, not like not I'm not being paid because like the company is not someone else's, but you know what I mean. Like I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. I'm like, what do you mean? Like I get to wake up, I get to work on robotics, I get to interact with like seniors and patients, and like what do they want, and I get to build tech for the world, and I'm getting paid to do this. It seems like I'm cheating kind of, because I'm just like obsessed and it's such a joy for me. It's such a happy place. So like I don't feel the pressure right now, but I remember when I was younger some moments felt really hard. um and when I moved to college, actually, like I went through a really really hard period, because like I had left all my friends back home in Kenya, and like I'm in Cornell at that time. I just like I didn't know a lot of people, and it was really hard. And like actually my grades kind of like, I didn't have bad grades, but like, and then like when you go to a school like Cornell, you're no longer the smartest person around. So like, and that's really inspiring, because when you're surrounded by the other super smart people, like even the level of intellect, like it goes up. Like you're smart, but then you get even 10 times smarter because the people around you are super, super smart. Like not even kidding, like super smart. So that was a little intimidating at first. Then when I flipped the switch and I was like, oh my God, actually there's nothing to like be intimidated about. It's like these are the smartest people in the world and like I get to be surrounded by them. So like that helped me like 10x, like level up like how I used to operate. um but then like there's also some part of it, like for me, when I think when something is not interesting to me, like I just get really bored. Like so when I got to Cornell and I was doing like intro, like some of my requirements, like intro to bio, like my obsession was like neuroscience, like how does the brain work, the brain circuit. So when I was doing like things like general biology or like general bio, like I just felt so bored and like my grades were kind of like not the best, like a B or something. And then like when I'm really interested in a subject, so like the higher level classes, like the 3,000, 4,000 classes, those I did well in because like I was super interested. But like the ones that I had to take for my requirements, like, and it's kind of like a general stuff. And then like I also like really hated memorization for some reason. I wanted something that I'm deeply curious about, then I do well. So for the classes that I didn't do well, that's like really impacted my self-esteem. Like, why am I not doing well? But there are also like very various social factors that going on. Like, I was really homesick sometime. But when I found like my group of nerds, like doing neuroscience research, that was like really comforting for me. And they're kind of like not autistic. I think I'm on the spectrum, not like severely, but in some ways, like maybe Asperger's. And I think like people in Silicon Valley, we are all like kind of at least a good proportion of them, kind of just like very eccentric in a good way. So that was my lab. So I found these people and I didn't feel the pressure to pretend I was somebody else. Like we're all just like nerds, like opening nights for Star Wars would like be literally the first people to line up. So like nothing was off the charts in terms of like intellectual like connection. So that was like the best part of college for me. And yeah, so I think like the pressure, it kind of goes down when like I tap into like my curiosity and like my obsessions, then like I kind of like shut out the outside world. Yeah, so I think the pressure in college, like going from being surrounded by the smartest people in the world, like who, and you feel like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm smart anymore. I think when things were interesting to me, then I just like that part went away. So when I found something I'm excited about, the part of like feeling like the imposter syndrome, like being surrounded by the smartest people in the world, it kind of like vanished because I was like focused on the things that excite me, like the things that I deeply cared about. I don't know if that makes sense. Like the
Yeah.
fear goes away when like you focus on your joys, kind of.
Um, it does make sense, totally sense. And I just read yesterday or the day before something about to be very successful, you do need to like to do the things you do because if you just do them because of a different kind of purpose, you may not last as long you need to last to be successful. And as you said, if something is boring, bores you, that you don't see any sense in it, then we're taking the motivation to go through, right? Um, the other question that I had was the part you were mentioning briefly, or I think where I stopped you, is having this kind of very hard talk with your parents and saying, okay, this was the path that has been laying in front of me. I was following, and now I decide that it will be going into a different direction, not medical school anymore. Now I would like to build tech, still related to something that I was doing before, but not being a doctor, right? Not becoming a doctor. So how is that conversation? Because I do think there's a lot of people out there that would like to do something else or like to leave the path that they agreed on or everyone was expecting from them. And here I would like to know how you were able to go through and how to find the braveness within and or how, yeah, find the guts to sit down and have this kind of talk.
Yeah, thanks, Hila. That's a really good question. I think like growing up in a family of doctors, and also just like in my culture, like these career paths that are really expected of you, especially when you're a good student. So like although I alluded to like I didn't feel the pressure, and I was just like really joyful and obsessed with what I'm doing when it's interesting to me. I did also feel like a pressure to like follow the path, right? Like this is the path laid out for you. Like you have to go to medical school. And then I think like the fact, like I think my mom making me read books about neurosurgery and stuff when I was really young, maybe that was kind of strategic. I don't think it was like out of malice. I think she just like really wanted me to be inspired and like, look up to, just like open my mind. But also I think I remember, and I particularly Ben Carson, I was like, oh my God, I want to be the next Ben Carson. And just like the moment I said that, like that was the path. So very funny. So like even when I went to college, I knew like I wanted, it was interesting to me for sure, like neurosurgery, neurology, and then eventually neurosurgery. So like my parents really expected that of me. Um, but so I think one, it was like me just starting to follow the things that made me happy. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's this book called Greed by a professor in UPenn, Angela Duckworth, and she talks about greed and perseverance. And she's talking about like realizing one of the parts of greed is also like realizing when something like excites you, like you just like have a nudge towards something, and it's like, oh, interesting, that kind of excited me. So like I knew like I was a sci-fi nerd. Like I literally grew up thinking about like what the world should look like and like outer space and stuff like that. Uh, so I think like the kind of the change started to happen when COVID happened. Actually, when I was in Seattle, like I've graduated, COVID is here, and it's kind of so funny about the timing of that. So like I actually thought about like 2020, like 2020, like when you go to optical, like 2020 is perfect vision. So it's so funny, like I made this connection between the year 2020 and like clear optical vision. Like anyway, so the year 2020 was kind of really changing for me. So when I was in Seattle, like it, because I think also like I was like super on the path. I was like always in school, so like I literally never took a break to like just like be taken out of like the matrix kind of. So like I was always on the path, but I think like COVID happened, and like suddenly like I'm not, because like I was gonna like finish like 2019, graduate medical school, then the residency, blah blah blah. So like the medical school was like a forced, like no, 2020 during COVID was like a really forced break. And all of a sudden like I had this time to think, and like I started noticing things that excited me. And that time I was in tech, and I got to interact with Satya, the Microsoft CEO. And like I just like, and I think like I've been also really obsessed with Lord of the Rings lately. I read it a little later than other people, and it has this concept of magic. And like you also realize like tech is also magical. And I think one of the reasons for me to stepping back from med school was also just because in med school I'd like get to like impact a handful of people, like also do 9 to 5. But with technology, like you get to build new worlds. Like that's magic to me. Like you get to build new things that never existed. You get to kind of expand the world in a way. So just like noticing the things that really excited me. So as I've mentioned, like those kind of like a yin yang to my parents. Like my dad was like super hardcore, and like I love that about him. Like he's able to like be like then like straight like an arrow. Like I love that. Like I got that from him. And my mom was like really soft. So like my mom was like really easy to like say, hey mom, like I'm really excited to like work in tech, and it's just like I really love it. And my mom was like, oh my god, girl, like whatever, let's go, like I'm gonna support you. My dad was like a little bit harder. Just like he had these dreams for me, and like he wanted to be a professor and like do his PhDs and whatever. Like my dad is like super super smart. Like he was just like me. Like he was always the top in his class. And like one of the reasons I'm called Brenda is because my dad had a competitor in college. Like both of them are always top of their class, and like this girl is like so smart. So my dad used to compete with her, and like that's why he called me Brenda, because like he really admired her intellect. Sorry mom, I I think my mom knows this story. Like I think she knows why I'm called Brenda. But so my dad was also like a really smart person, and like the fact that he ended up having to kind of take care of the family and kind of put us, listen, like when you're doing your PhDs, when I was in lab, like I had the pleasure of like working with a lot of PhDs and like postdocs, and like, you know, it's not super glamorous, and like sometimes like your PhD goes on for such a long time, your postdoc goes on for even longer. I don't think at up to a certain point my dad had the pleasure of like just like being a student, like a perpetual student. So he was like, you know, you have a family to take care of, it's really hard, he has to support me like through my career and whatever. So I think part of like my dad really wanting me to follow the path was like also him feeling like I'm doing so much, and like I feel like I can't do my PhD right now. I can't like continue being a student forever. So I think that was part of why he was really attached to like my path. But I think like he deeply loves me, and like he just wanted me to be happy at some point. So he came around, but up to now, I think up to until recently is also like, so when are you going back to med school? And I was always genuine and I said I'm gonna go back, but I just don't think right now it's even something that I want to do. Like med school is great. Just like I feel like AI is such like, even, and I'm sorry to say this, is such like possibly a better artificial doctor. Just like because like there's like 30,000 publications every day, like it would take a doctor like months to read that and like implement that. AI can read that in a second and like give you stuff. To be honest, I think we'll always need a human in the loop, but AI is like such a better artificial doctor. And I think that's one of the reasons like I stepped away from medical school, because I realized like I didn't want to be redundant. And I think I was better building the systems that support the doctors. And I think we'll always need the human component and the empathy, but I also realized like this is much more bigger than that. So also my dad, he also came to understand this actually, and he was like, dude, like AI is like so great, like I don't even know if I want you to be a doctor anymore, because this AI is much smarter than you. I would rather you're working on the other end. So for example, right now when we're building robots, like part of it is like physical intelligence. It makes super intelligence more possible, because we can only use like internet data, like synthetic data, up to a certain point. Then we have to have the robots go into the physical world and like actually interact and just collect as much data as we experience as human beings. That's why I think like building a humanoid is a way to like not only increase labor in the world, but to also to our a path to like super intelligence. So I think my dad understanding that, he was like, I'm actually really, really happy. I didn't see it, and I'm glad like you kind of saw it before me. But now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. I want you to be on the other end where you're building like super intelligence versus you're the recipient of it. So right now he's like so happy. Like my dad like super, super loves me. Like I'm a daddy's girl, and he'd do anything to support me, and it was hard. But also I think when, so part of it is just like your loved one seeing just like how much obsessed you are with the thing, and like seeing like you deeply, deeply love it. Because I think at some point when someone sees you really love something, then they're like, wait, let me just like back up a little bit. But it's also like succeeding. Part of it is like my dad seeing all like my wrapped up successes in the things that I'm doing. Then he's like, wait, maybe she's on to something. But so like to answer your question, I don't know if I don't know, like maybe from all everything I've said, you can come up with like an answer as to like how to go about having that convo. Um, but I think it's just like about loving something so deeply, such that the people that want have other plans for you, like your parents, end up seeing, wait, like she's really happy here, and also like succeeding and being good at it, because then like it makes sense. But then maybe it may take a while. For example, my dad ending up seeing like he'd rather that I'm building super intelligence, like being a recipient of it. So I don't know if that helps.
But this is, I think, is the perfect handover point to what
Yeah.
you guys are doing today, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah, so when I moved to Silicon Valley, I met a friend who had done X Prize. I don't know how much you know about X Prize, but basically they put like $100 million award and they tell all the teams in the world to compete to solve something. So that time it was X Prize and Avatar, where it's like teleoperation to solve the labor problem and like to also kind of like enable presence around the world. So if like if I'm a doctor and like I want to help kids in Gaza, I could like potentially put like a VR headset, then like help kids in Gaza without endangering my life, but I'm like also helping. So that this is the whole concept of X Prize and Avatar. So when I moved to the valley, the first week that I moved here, actually I met my co-founder at AGI House, and he had done X Prize and actually one of the finalists, and he was running a robotics company. So after X Prize, he decided to commercialize the tech, and after a while I actually joined him and we started the robotics company. But when I moved to the valley, I didn't join the robotics company immediately. I was actually working on life extension for a certain while. If I can talk a little bit about life extension, so right now I'm kind of working on robotics for seniors, just like I saw so many problems in senior living. But I truly do believe the problem we need to be solving is not like it's okay for now, because that's where we are as a society, as a civilization, like building tools like robots that make seniors life better. But I think like also like as a collective we need to assess like why like we accept like aging, like we come into the world, we reach 30, 40, then after 40 there's like a steady decline until like 100 and then we die. So I think like that's not acceptable. So like when I moved to the valley, I was actually working on life extension. Like my background is actually biology, so I was working on life extension for like about for actually a while. And I did co-found a startup with like some friends from Stanford, like working on life extension, because I believe so actually right now when we're dealing with doing robots for seniors, and I see like incredible people like Stanford professors, MIT professors, and like this person is to like they be the most brilliant in their field, and then like right now they're just like they don't remember anything, they're kind of like using a worker, they're kind of like falling over, and I'm like, oh my god, like how did we get here, like why are we accepting this? Anyway, that's a whole other thing, and I think it's one of the things like I also want to work on in my life, like just like helping humanity live longer by introducing like super long lifespan or like immortality in some way. Anyway, but before and I think there's a lot of brilliant people working on the field that I feel like are contributing. Personally, I would be more hardcore like cryopreservation and stuff like that. And there's a company in Germany, actually, I think not Germany, Europe, I'm not sure where, Tomorrow Bio, they're actually doing cryopreservation. Anyway, so that was like my little segue. When I moved to Silicon Valley, I was actually working on life extension. And then I joined a robotic startup. Personally, like choosing also between two things that are really exciting for me that I deeply care about, like life extension and then robotics. And I found like I really had more joy like doing robots, and like that goes to like how you're asking, like how do you choose when you like have two options that you deeply care about, you really want to solve the problems in the world. But I chose robotics just because like I think the timing is right, the marketing is right. Like robotics has been around for so long, but I think we're just at the cusp where like I think just like the technical advancement, like it's ready for us to build robot, and also like just a broad acceptance of robot is now getting like normalized. So I analyzed everything and I had to wait, do I do life extension or like do I do robotics? And you ended up doing robotics. Also, the robotic startup was really working like much better. And as I've also mentioned, like there's a lot of people working on life extension that I think are solving another problem I could be solving. So like that's kind of okay. And so anyway, so worked on the robotic startup for about a year before I actually like decided to do senior living. So I all the experience I had gathered during COVID, like working with seniors and like seeing just like how isolated they can get, just like the problems that they have, and then seeing how their families really struggle with senior care. Like you find that you find like some families don't have enough money to take care of their loved one, like it's really really expensive, and they're not able to afford 24/7 care. That's something a robot could easily solve. I'd find that some families would like stay up at night to like make sure their mom is like not getting up to go to the bathroom, or like falling over, just like not have enough quality of sleep. Like that's something a robot could do very easily, like just like watch someone at night. And that, believe it or not, it actually frees up the loved one to like get quality of sleep, be productive the next day. So like I saw like the emotional burden of being a care, and there's nothing wrong with taking care of your parents. It's actually like super super great. But then there's this component that's kind of like not talked about the emotional impact of all that, and then the financial impact. And then I saw the problems like with caregiving. So for example, like caregivers are really burnt out, like there's a lot of turnover. So all these problems, when I transitioned from my initial robotic startup I was working on, like I knew I wanted to stay in robotics because like I really wanted to advance. I think like if all of us as a collective like really push it, then like we're gonna get somewhere. But I was like, well, where do I want to apply this? And I deeply knew that it was senior living. I was doing the market research, and like I needed like some sort of confirmation. Like I'm also kind of like a spiritual person, so like I was just like asking the universe, like where do I need to apply the robotics like that I've started. And I knew the answer was senior living, but then like the founder of XPRIZE, Peter, actually wrote this huge robotics like meta like report, and he was kind of saying there's like industrial automation, and then there's senior living, which is the next biggest market for robotics. And the more I looked into it, the more I was getting confirmation that I'm right. So like right now, if you look at Japan, they're like at 50%, like 50% of the population is almost seniors. And like the birth rates
Same
are
in
going
Germany.
yeah, so there's just I know PAL robotics, I think they're in Germany, like they're trying to do robots for senior living. So you find like there's just not gonna be enough people to provide like the quality of care like our seniors deserve. So when Peter wrote that report, it actually like really confirmed what I knew, and I'm deeply grateful for Peter like for always like being such a visionary. So the report that he wrote on robotics like really kind of confirmed what I knew. And then from then on I was just like, let's go. Like I was like, let's go. So I was deeply deeply doing research. I was like really like I'm not deeply religious at this point, but I'm like really spiritual. So I was like deeply deeply seeking guidance. And then like that was a confirmation to me like I was on the right path, and like just like the market research and stuff like that. So a combination of everything led me to do robots for senior living, and it's a problem that I care deeply deeply about. And actually right now I'm still working with seniors like a few nights a week. Like I go to a senior living facility, and like because it really helps ground me. Like when I started in robotics, like I was just in lab, and like it really detached me from like the person I was building the robots for. But when I decided to do the senior living niche, senior living vertical, I find that being around seniors and like being in the senior living facilities like really helps me. It's kind of like how artists, like when they want inspiration, like they go to like a certain place. So I'm working with one designer, one industrial designer, who's like, oh my god, I totally want to go to a senior living facility because it inspires like my robotics design inspiration. So it does the same for me. That's why like I'm still like on the ground, like in senior living facilities, like working with seniors. But it also really enables me to understand the problems in senior living. So when I go there, like I'm able to see. So for example, I noticed one thing caregivers really struggle with is laundry. Like they're supposed to be taking care of like all these seniors. Like one caregiver has like 6 seniors to take care of, but then like they have to spend so much time on laundry. So as the robots get more advanced and like are able to do more physical labor, that's one thing I'd love to solve. So like being on the ground, like, and that's one thing I'd like recommend like for founders, just like being close to the person you're solving it for, and like being on the ground. Anyway, so when I decided to do robots for senior living, I didn't have like huge amounts of money and funding. And I was like, how do I get feedback. So I ended up like, so I didn't, before spending millions of dollars developing like a robot, which is like really capital intensive. Maybe not right now. I know Ben, my friend who you talk to, like is building like humanoids for like 8K, not like 100K anymore. So I think the cost is coming down. Like if you, there's ways to reduce the cost, but before spending even a dollar, like I ended up like partnering with my friend who's also building a robotics company, and he already has like a really wonderful, amazing humanoid operating. So I partnered with him, and like we went to these senior living communities, like we started doing demos, and now like we'll be doing pilots soon. And then there's actually some facilities that actually want to buy this right up front. And then there's families that are actually on the wait list, like they're saying, you know, my mom is like, I mean, if you have aging parents or grandparents, you know how it goes. So like families have been reaching out and saying like, we really want to get on the wait list. So before I even spent a dollar to like build a robot, like I went to and this is what I was saying, like being resourceful, like kind of working with what you have. I worked with my friend, and like we kind of like already deploying and kind of like getting back the data that we need. And then so based on everything that I understood, like from my market research, working with my friend, so now like I'm kind of building our own robot solution. Just like one thing I noticed, like it's really, I think everybody right now in robotics is like really trying to figure out their stuff in-house. So it's really hard to like partner with another manufacturer because they have their own stuff to figure out. So it became like really hard, like depending on like another manufacturer. And like I felt like we just like needed an in-house hardware solution. And then the
How many
second
people
thing,
are you guys?
so right now we're about like 5 people. And so this is one thing you're saying, like sharing some news on the podcast. Hopefully I'm trying to bring on a really strong CTO who's worked in like amazing robotics companies that you know. So kind of building my super team that I want to build this with long term. But otherwise it's been like 5 people just working on this. And then one thing I've done to also keep the cost down is like I've also worked with contractors and like outside like design firms and that. But also initially I didn't need to build my own robot. So my focus was kind of like on kind of like doing understanding the market, not on like building the robot. And then when I've done that, I ended up realizing I really need to build my own solution. So right now I'm in the process of like building our founding team. So anybody who's like super interested in like robotics and like if you want to solve the problems for seniors, please join us. I'm kind of putting together a strong technical team, a strong engineering team. So 5 people in-house, and then like we have like contractors and like external engineering and external industrial design teams. So in regard to like where we are with building our own robots, we are like in the industrial design part, and then from the industrial design then like we go to the manufacturing. Like that's something I could actually share more about. So the reason I ended up wanting to design my own robot is I realized like as an industry and like as someone who's like building for seniors, it's very easy for us technologists to like build a technology and then like impose it on the user. And I feel like that's in some way what has been happening. Like you build a robot and then you want to do a use case with it. So I think what I've noticed is kind of doing the other way around, like identifying a user in this use case, in this scenario who's a senior, then building a robot for them, versus like kind of building like a super like industrial robot, then like trying to take that and put it in senior living. So like imposing the technologies we are building and like on the end user, especially like for us, it's like a very vulnerable populate, not vulnerable in a bad way, but you understand what I mean. And like so I looked everywhere and I was like, well, who can, there's some robotics companies I'm partnering with, but in terms of like a solution, like I just like I haven't seen someone who's built like a solution, because a lot of people keep on asking me, why do you want to build like your own hardware? I think it's just like I really care about the design and I really care about how my user feels. So like I want to work backwards. Like I'm with these seniors every day, so I want to build a design that's for them, not like take an industrial robot and try to make it work for them. So anyway, and if a robot is industrial, it's okay, that's where it belongs. But I'm just like fighting like trying to customize like an existing robot to like a population that need, like, it's very sensitive to like seniors are like super sensitive. If you took an industrial robot to them, they would totally freak out. So that's the reason as to why like I want to design our own hardware, because I believe we could come up with a solution that's like really good for seniors. And then also like the manufacturing part, I think just like being in charge of your own manufacturing process is like much better than relying on someone else, because when you rely on someone else, there's just like so much problems, and you're not able to be reliable to your users.
The I mean, you're not having a mechanical engineering background, or you're not having an electrical engineering background or computer science background, right? Um, how was that for you to entering this kind of niche or domain? And you were talking about how you found your people in the labs, right? So there's a certain way of feeling and community, right? But I also do now, and here I'm more than happy if you correct me, but I do know that also, especially in very competitive domains, and STEM is it's still a very male heavy domain, right? How is it for you as a woman, if you don't mind me asking? How is it for you as a woman with a not technical degree coming into this domain and would like to change something? And now you're saying putting together this team. How is it for you, and what are the challenges, and where you guys are at when you said that you're keeping costs down? Have you raised any money yet? Are you raising, because it's very capital intensive? So where are you guys from that perspective?
Yeah. So I'm kind of I would say I'm technical, because, for example, when I was in undergrad and like you do all the coding and like the analysis for your like data analysis, so I'm technical in that sense. But also when I moved to the Valley and then I joined a robotic startup, that just like really gave me like a lot of like experience, because like there's just like so much that goes in. My co-founder was actually really heavily technical, the one that did X Prize, and like he took most of like the development process and stuff. I was the CEO of that startup, and like I was doing more business stuff. Within that time, I also got to be like more technical, like self-taught. But I also got to learn like how robotics works. For example, like some of our robots are like deployed into the real world, and like one of them was working as like as a receptionist at like Inflection AI. So like just like I think I think I would say I'm a roboticist, but I think they are better roboticists than me. Just like some of them are like they have like several PhDs like in robotics or whatever. So you find like there are people who are better than me, but the self teaching that I've done within that time like has also been really helpful. That being said, I think they're better engineers or like better roboticists than me. So I think my main goal is actually putting together the best people in the world. Um, and it's so funny because people want to join me, and so the best engineers love to work with the best engineers. I think I would say from all the things like I've taught myself and like working at a robotic startup before, I would classify myself like as like an engineer, like a roboticist, and like I know the best people want to work with the best people. So I think my goal also is like having, so for example, the CTO that maybe I'll tell you later who it is when like we're done with the whole thing. So getting someone like that, you find like the best engineers want to work with that person, so it ends up attracting just like the best people. I think the one of the skills that I have is kind of like putting people together and like kind of building the best people to do something. So that has like been also really helpful, and like I've found that kind of trying to recruit people like from MIT or like Stanford, like a really good technical, like actually like right now, like as you've seen, there's kind of like AI wars going on, like it's the AI race, the robotics race, and also like the talent acquisition wars. It's like really going on right now. So like, and there's some particular labs around the US that companies really want to get PhDs from that are just finishing. So that has also been my target, because like these are really fresh PhDs, and like they're really hungry, and like they want to do something meaningful and impactful, especially like in the AI and robotics. So like recruiting people like that has also been really helpful. So on the other hand, like I'm also like talking to people who are like super experienced, like a potential CEO who might come in soon. So kind of like, I don't know, I think just trying to find the right balance of like people who have the right incentives to work on something. Because like maybe if you go to an engineer and like you really want to join your team and want them to join your team, and for example they're working for like a big corporation like making like 450K a year, I mean it's very hard to convince them to like join your startup in that regard. But if you go to someone who kind of wants, I think it's all like about incentive, because some people they want like a huge paycheck, and some people they're like this is like kind of like an inflection point for civilization, like where we're working in AI and robotics, this is like a technology that's gonna change the world. And then you like find someone like that who's like, I really wanna, and I'm not saying like people who get big paychecks don't have the same incentive, I'm pretty sure they do, like they seem like really really motivated, but they're just like so for example one person I was talking to, they're like, you know, like I was a caregiver for my mom and like she died 2 weeks ago, and like this is like an engineer who's like worked in Facebook before. This is like a very emotional call, he was crying, I was like tearing up. So like kind of like finding people who care about a problem. I think Palmer Luckey was talking like in an interview, and he was like saying when he started Oculus, it was just like a bunch of people who are like obsessed with VR. So I think the same for me right now is like finding people who are like really obsessed with robotics and like also really obsessed with kind of like senior living in some way, because like they have like a personal problem or like a personal vendetta. Like my friend who worked at Apple and now he wants to get into the company because he's been a caregiver, he was a primary caregiver for his mom who like passed away. It was really really hard for him. So when you find like these stories and like people like that, then they're joining the mission, and like they're not joining for like various other incentives. And then the fresh PhDs kind of who are like leaving MIT and like Stanford from like the best labs around the world, like people are fighting for right now, like finding people like that. But also like I think as a founder is like being able to have a vision and like kind of holding it really steadily. And like for example Elon, he's like a really good example whereby he has this vision, he like super believes in it, and like he's genuinely and deeply cares about it. So you find like people want to join like the authenticity and like the vision this person has and like making it a reality. So like I think the founder has to have that. And I think when you have that, then people like want to join your vision or like your vision and your mission. So just like being clear on that, and then you find the best people. I don't know why the best people come to us, like I can't really tell. I think it's just like I genuinely deeply care about what I do, and I think people like are kind of attracted to that. So that's where I am in regard to building the founding team. But also just like to mention, we're already kind of deploying through robotics partnership with other people. So like that's fine, like we have more demand than we can actually fulfill, like we have people wanting to buy, like being on the wait list. So I think that was a really really approach for me, and like that's why it comes back to like being resourceful and like working with what you have. Because I could like have waited and said like I needed like $1 billion to like build my own robot, but I was like, what can I do with what I have right now? Like I went to someone and like we partnered, and like we are kind of like a little bit even ahead of like the people already who are like building their in. I mean, we're doing that right now, but in terms of like where we could be, like we're more ahead of like than people who have way more funding. Just like through this partnership, I was like able to like go sign people up, get customers, start demos, like just like de-risk the market. So we already have that. And now we, from everything that we learned from partnerships, now we get to bring that back in-house and build our own thing. Like in terms of funding, we're actually fundraising right now. So I'm kind of like preparing the fundraising materials in terms of like, hey, like we didn't have $1 billion, but we're really resourceful and we went to the market through partnerships, and like we learned so much. We have this amount of traction, we have this amount of like maybe say like not pre-orders, but we have this amount of like people on the wait list and stuff like that. So just like using what we had to like build traction so that we're in a better position. Then also really really focusing on the team, because like I'm a neuroscientist by training and like a self-taught engineer, like a roboticist, but then like kind of bringing someone else that's really strong, that's also kind of de-risking. So putting all that together, then like getting back to like the fundraising, and that's also a process. And you just have to find like investors who are like really aligned with you, like kind of people who, like for example, like my target investors, like hardware people, like people who fund space. Because like someone who funds space, like that's someone I can see like we have like a shared like vision of the world. Like because they also want to explore the world and make it better. Like, you don't have to explain your vision to them. And to me, honestly, although like I'm approaching senior living as like a vertical and a niche, my goal, even in my previous robotic startup, was for everyone to have their own R2D2, like Jarvis, like their own Iron Man. But I realized it was kind of really early for that to go straight to the home. And I'm very happy that 1X is going straight to the home. And I think it's gonna happen. But for me, when you tried to do it and like sell robots to the home, it was like a little early for us. That's the previous company. At least in my assessment. So actually I realized like senior living is also like a step to everybody having their own robot, because we are going to do senior living in like a nursing facility, and then we are going to do someone says, oh, my mom needs this robot to stay at home, and then now it's gonna go to the seniors at home, and then we are gonna get to my North Star, which is robots at home. Because you say, oh, my grandma has this robot, okay, I can have it too, and then we end up where everybody has a robot for themselves. But for me, it was like a very strategic decision to do senior living as a path to the home.
Especially as you mentioned earlier, that with demographic charts that are crazy, right? If you look at it, and not only in Japan or in Germany, and all major Western countries, so to speak, right? You do see that the majority of people are over 50, and even as you said, over 50% over 50, right? So the numbers are crazy already. And I'm very happy that you gave us such a great insight, but not only in the company, because the company I think came a bit short here. But as this we talked earlier, this is a people's podcast, and I'm always interested in the stories of the people behind the technology and the company. I'm happy to see that this is the incentive of, and here we're coming back to your topic, the incentive of what you guys are doing is something to make the world a better place. And because when we hear all those AI agents at the moment, or ways to make money, or how to implement it in enterprises, is not necessarily how to make the world a better place. It's how to make more money, or how to be more productive. Or so I do like to and or not how to assemble a car or whatever. Right? It's taking care of the people that we love, but in a way that is not breaking us, because as you said, it's very exhausting and time intensive, money intensive. And yeah, you were mentioning Benjamin. So this is Benjamin Bolte from K-Scale Labs. Every time after I have a conversation with my guests here, I reach out and ask, so who is the person you think I should talk to, because they have an interesting story. And yeah, Benjamin was so kind to suggest you, and you were so kind to be a guest here on the podcast. Afterwards, I will ask you who is an interesting person for you. But yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for all the insights, but also about the hard times, the struggles, because this is what the podcast is also about, to be an inspiration for people that are on the similar path, or a very similar path, and how to make it through those struggles, how to overcome those obstacles. Does it matter to leave the country, to go into a different kind of culture, to go a different kind of field where you don't have the expertise, but you still can do things and can read and can, as you said, self-teach you things that you're missing, and or the lack of as you said, you're being surrounded by the smartest people in the world. You just need to work just as hard as they am, and then you might end up being in a similar situation. So I'm thankful for all that, and I'm very curious to see what comes out of your little garage, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. I really like what you said. I think at least for me, I found that working on the most difficult challenges in the world is like what really inspires me. Like, kind of seeing like, where do we want our world and civilization to be like in like 2020, in 2050, for example. So like my goal is like to see where we should be, and like this is why sci-fi is like really inspirational. So for example, like how I spend my free time, and I think I should like really try to diversify my like interest is like kind of like reading and watching sci-fi and seeing what other humans have kind of conceived in their minds, and like seeing what inspiration can I take from that in the world? So for example, even me talking about like robots taking care of our aging population, like there's literally a whole movie about it. It's called Robot and Frank. So like movies like that, like, and it's something that other human beings have conceived. And I think when human mind conceives something, it's like very possible. Like all these things like we're building right now, they were written of like Isaac Asimov wrote years ago about like having sentient machines and robots. So like how I spend my free time is like kind of watching sci-fi and like reading and like actually take down notes and like see does the world need to look like in like 2060, you know? So like, and then like working back. So this is like how I pick the problems that I'm working on, whether it's like robotics and like making robots happen, and like whether it's like life extension, like whether it's like space exploration. And I like what you said, like we have like the smartest people, and like sometimes people are doing like apps, like, and there's nothing wrong with apps, but I just like wish like all the smartest people in the world would be like working on like the most difficult problems, first of all to like make the world more balanced, but also like for us to like advance our civilization. So like that's something like I really hope we all do to like push, you know, towards a future. And like one more thing, how you asked me like about being a woman like in hardware, yeah, I think it can be really, it can be really really challenging sometimes, but also like I think I overcome that is just like being really obsessed with like what I'm doing, such that sometimes it's just like I don't think about it, but you know there are certain limitations, and just like building, I think you said something really important, like you're the average of the 5 people you spend your time with. And like I try to surround myself with like the smartest people, like women in like hardware. Like when you say tell me someone who you think I should talk to, like I already have a person, so I'm gonna email that to you. But like surrounding yourself by people like that, like they like it's like every day they're breaking new barriers. Like whatever you're doing, it seems like really small compared to that. So it's like they just friends that just like do really amazing in the things in the world, and they just like, you know, kind of lift you along with them, and like you lift other people. So that, you know, as a woman, that has been my strategy, kind of being surrounded, whether it's not even mostly female, but also like male friends, male, like for example Ben and other like robotics people. When I'm surrounded by people like that, then like what I'm doing does not seem so like absurd or like weird, because like this is what we're doing, this is our life. So yeah, I think it's like friends and like community and like mentors. Like I have like really really amazing mentors, and it's just like crazy people like you, because I think like if you're surrounded by people like not as crazy as you are, then what you're doing seems really weird. But if you're surrounded by other like super super crazy, even crazier people than you, like that's the best place to be. And like I found that being the smartest person in the room is like not always a good thing. Like I used to like take pride in that, and like even right now it's intimidating, because you meet people who are like super smart, and like sometimes it's like kind of hard to like overcome that you're no longer the smartest person. But it's like also the best thing, because like then you get to 10x yourself, because just like you need to do better. Yeah, just those are like some things like I've learned.
I'm curious to see who will be your suggestion, and I'm very happy to that you said yes to the podcast. And like I said earlier, I'm very curious to see what comes out of your lab. And as you said, deployment is a big topic. Just yesterday, I read something about the deployment gap. There's a lot of people with nice visions and nice ideas and nice launches, but the deployment part is the actually part that counts, right? Because disruption comes from adoption. And yeah, happy when you will share some things. Please think about me, because I'm always looking for new content. And when I will publish this episode, I'm always using some visuals, videos, pictures from my guests. So I'm more than happy to be a receiver of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think in like robotics deployment is the most important thing, because we could have like super pretty tech, but I think the distribution and like the deployment is what's gonna take us from like early adopters to like mass market. So it's like a really huge component. Yeah, but yeah, I could talk literally talk all day about this. It's what I do. But thank you so much, Ilya, for having me. And uh, happy to have like another conversation more like on the technical side and like more of like the startup side.
Um, Maybe for another time. I haven't done this yet, but I'm planning to in future episodes or seasons, if this will become reality, to pick a few guests and see if where they are with the startups, as this is with a lot of people that are founders, and let's see what you guys are building.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so, so much. Dankeschön.
Sehr gerne. Vielen Dank, dass du heute bei uns warst und einen schönen Tag dir noch.
Gute Nacht.
Dankeschön. Mach's gut.
Okay,
Tschüss.
auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.